Hi, Gene here with today's thought. Today we're going to talk about the election, the one that's coming up, election 2024. Actually, the primary debates start, I think, the first one is going to be held in August. So things are starting to move along. Today, as I'm recording this, the day before you're seeing it, Tim Scott officially announced his entry into the presidential race. So, well, frankly, I'm starting to lose count of how many candidates have entered. It's kind of, well, I don't know. I guess they all think that Trump can't win. I absolutely think he can. In fact, there's a Harvard Harris poll that just came out showing Trump 7 points ahead of Biden, and DeSantis, who's supposed to be the better candidate to a lot of people, he's even with Biden. Of course, as usual, the polls, it's early, the usual caveats. So who knows how the election will turn out? But the idea that Trump can't win, I don't agree with that, and I'll probably talk about that in more detail later. But for now, just the general question of whether the Republicans can win, and some people are pessimistic on the Republican side because they don't. Because, well, 2020, and they all say it was a perfectly fair election, no cheating. Oh, and something about that happening in Arizona right now that could change that mindset because, well, I don't want to. Arizona, Kari Lake is challenging her loss to Katie Hobbs, and it went to trial. The judge dismissed all the charges. It went to the Supreme Court, the Arizona Supreme Court. They reinstated one of the charges, said that the judge got it wrong. That he misinterpreted what the case was actually about on that one count, and it went back about whether the signature laws or rules were complied with in the 2022 midterm election. So we'll have to see what happens. I don't want to prejudge it, but depending on the results of that case, we're waiting now. They just had the trial, and the judge's decision, I guess, would be coming pretty soon. And then I would expect whichever way it goes is going to be appealed. So we have a ways to go on that. But depending on how that turns out, well, put it this very short, if Kari Lake wins and it turns out that the law was not followed in the 2022 election, then obviously there's a very strong argument that it wasn't followed in the 2020 election either, because the same people were in charge. So that could change everything. And the reason I focus on Arizona especially is because you saw the title to today's thought, and the reason is because there is actually some very good news about whether the Republicans, whoever the candidate turns out to be, could win in 2024, because they're saying, well, it'll just be a repeat of 2020, and we would get the same result. Never mind all the things. Also, I think Biden's troubles are starting to grow. You know the phrase "walls closing in." I'll have a thought on that coming up, but I'm waiting there's recent developments. I don't want to get too sidetracked today. The point is that there's a factor that everybody or most people are missing, except for IBD, Investors Business Daily, the editorial writers. They split off from Investors Business Daily. They just do their own polls, and they were the most accurate in the last election. Number one, they showed the least bias, by the way, between all polls seem to have, well, either a Democratic bias or a Republican bias. They most have a Democratic bias, but this one had the least bias. So they're pretty credible, but I'm not talking about a poll today. What I'm talking about is the 2020 census. People are not paying attention to that, but in the 2020 census, which was not used for the 2020 election because the census was just taken, it will affect the 2024 election because seats are changing, because the population changed and congressional representation changed, and some states lost seats, bottom line, generally, the red states gained seats, the Democratic states lost seats, and it changes the amount of electors each party has. And so I'm linking to this article so you can read the whole article. I'm just going to read you an excerpt from it. But here it is very shortly. If 2024 plays out as it did in 2020 and each party wins its respective states, the red state, the liberals win the states. They win, and the Republicans win the states. They usually win. I guess that's what that means. If 2024 plays out as it did in 2020 and each party wins its respective states, the GOP will gain 4 electoral college votes in Texas, Florida, Montana, and North Carolina, but will lose 2 in Ohio and West Virginia. The net result, GOP gains 2 votes. The Democrats will gain 2 electors in Oregon and Colorado, but will lose seats in California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania, resulting in a net loss of 3 votes. Combining the above two will mean the GOP will gain 5 new electors. So they're going to have 5 more electors in the 2024 election than they had in 2020. Now, this is where Arizona comes in. Arizona, the state has a new Democrat governor elected in 2022, but the 2020 election was very close. Biden ultimately won the state by some 10,000 votes over Trump, 0.3%. That's a very small margin, marking the first time a Democratic presidential nominee carried Arizona since Bill Clinton in 1996, and only the second time since Harry S. Truman's 1948 victory. If the GOP nominee, this is important, if the GOP nominee can campaign hard in Arizona on the issues facing Arizonans, illegal immigration, the economy, inflation, education, crime, and the Ukraine war, and not delve only into the 2020 election irregularities, Arizona looks very promising for the GOP. Now, I'm putting up a map, and the map shows how the states would break down. The way it's looking now, according to these IBD people with the most accurate poll, the way it breaks down, if the Republicans win Arizona, they've won the 2024 election. And that's my thought for today. Thanks as always for stopping by. If you could subscribe, that would be great. Look forward to seeing all of you again. Until I do, bye.